Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostle of the great millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with 100% truth and sincerity, and unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning, and unto the Bayath Adawada, the elect house of David that is scattered abroad. I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. Okay, so this afternoon's lesson is entitled Spoils of War. Okay? Now, we're going to read a little bit of this article and then we're going to go ahead and get into the scriptures here. So it says here on Infobay, Women and Spoils of War, the systematic and coordinated rape campaign by Russian soldiers against Ukrainian girls and women. Okay? Raped and mutilated bodies continue to appear. Several international organizations are collecting evidence. What drives combatants to commit these brutalities? The case of the Soviets in Berlin in 1945, the Japanese in Nanjing, the Americans in My Lai, which is that's Vietnam. Alright, let's go down here. Okay, it says on March 13th, excuse me. On March 13th, a Russian soldier broke into a school of Malaya Rohan, a town near the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, which had been relentlessly bombed by Vladimir Putin's forces for weeks. Dozens of women and boys took refuge in the basement of the school. The soldier arrived in the underground hall, threatened several times with shooting, and ordered a 31-year-old woman to go up to the main floor of the building, locked her in a classroom, and proceeded to repeatedly ravish her. He was forced to perform oral sex, and while doing so, he pointed a gun at her head or directly in her face. On two occasions, he shot at the ceiling. She said it was to give her more motivation. Okay, so, let's see here. Okay, so right here, when Russian troops, go down a little bit here. When Russian troops withdrew from around Kiev in April 1st, around official reports of sexual violence, which had reached droplets during the first 5 weeks of the invasion, suddenly took the form of a systematic and coordinated campaign of sexual violence. Adolescent girls and young women were the main target, but so were girls and boys as young as 5 or 6, and old women up to 80 years old. Little by little, similar stories of perversion and brutality began to spread in every town or city where Russian troops passed by. In the last week, there has been an exponential increase in complaints of women who dared to count the atrocities to which they were subjected. And this is an image, of a 29-year-old woman here who went through such tragedy. Beaten and ravished. Excuse me. So, this type of brutality, and even worse, is going to come for these women here in Babylon. Especially you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and the speckled bird, whose father's lines go back, and you know that you're an Israelite because your spirit resonates with this word. You Israelite women out there, this is what you have to look forward to if you don't get yourselves right with the Lord, man. Okay, I'm gonna read here. Excuse me. It was also seen that the sexual assaults had an organization that far exceeded the possible individual actions of any soldier. Ukrainian Ombudsman Lyudmila Denisova reported that 25 teenagers were held in the basement in the city of Bucha and gang raped. None of them are now pregnant. Oh, damn. Dozens of bodies excuse me, my allergies are acting up. Dozens of bodies of naked women with their hands tied behind their backs were found in that area. Some had mutilated genitals. There were also several boys in these conditions. Another group of women who were caught helping the defense had their heads shaved and tortured by inserting weapons into their bodies. These sexual crimes are a weapon of war to humiliate, subjugate, terrorize, and force people to flee the territory. Okay? So the Russian soldiers are trying to send a signal to the entire community. We are the winners, you are weak, we will destroy you. So you better give up the struggle for independence. So rape was first recognized as a war crime in 1919. But many more wars went on before the first prosecution took place. It was against a Rwandan warlord in 1998. The first trial within the framework of the United Nations was for cases that occurred during the conflict in the former Yugoslavia, where Serbian forces maintained rape camps as an instrument of terror. Now, investigators from different specialized agencies are working in Ukraine collecting the evidence to bring the perpetrators before an international tribunal. These allegations must be investigated independently to ensure justice and accountability. So, let's see. Okay, it says the history of cruelty of human beings to the peers is very long and inconceivable. One should only think about slavery. The armies have always used rape as a weapon of war. In the 20th century, these crimes began to be documented. The Imperial Japanese Army organized sex slave networks during the invasion of China. They did the same thing with the Korean women when they took over the peninsula. It also happened after the German army invaded Russia in 1941, organized by the Einsatzgruppen, which is a special action group. Russians responded with the same atrocity when they entered Berlin in 1945. So, in the next 3 years, there were between 600,000 and 2 million rapes of German women who had survived the war. American soldiers in My Lai massacred men, women, and children in 1968 during the Vietnam War, and obviously there was no shortage of rapes. The successful wars in the Balkans documented systematic sexual abuse on all sides. In Bosnia, 1992 to 1995, there were between 20,000 and 60,000. In the war with Rwanda, 1990 to 1994, there were between 250,000 and 500,000. So, as it goes on, you talk more about it. But yes, this whole thing about rape, this is, it's always been a weapon of war, like I said, to subjugate, to terrorize, or to humiliate. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and get a little, some scriptures here. We're going to start off with the book of Numbers. Slovakia, my allergies are just acting up, and plus I just woke up from a nap earlier. So, bear with me here. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 31, starting at verse 1. And the Lord spake, and then the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 2, avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Now, if you don't know what the Midians are, the Midianites are a sub-tribe of Ishmael, the so-called Arabians, the Arabs. Okay? Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people. Verse 3. And Moses spake unto the people, saying, arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites to avenge the Lord of Midian. Verse 4, of every tribe 1,000 throughout all the tribes of Israel shall ye send to the war. So there were delivered out of the 1,000 of Israel 8,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to that war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the war, with the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. as they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. Verse 8. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi, Rechem, and Zur, and Hor, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. Verse 9. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives, and their little ones, and took the spoil of their cattle, and all their flocks, and all their goods. So, as the scriptures say, you women are a spoil of war. Okay? And they took, their cattle, their flocks, they took all their resources, all their goods, and your children. Verse 10, and they burnt all the cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. So burnt down their civilization, destroyed everything. Verse 11, and they took all the spoil, and all the prey, both of men and of beasts. Verse 12, and they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, which are by Jordan near Jericho. And unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. Salakia. Verse 13, and Moses and Eleazar the priest, and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Verse 16, behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague upon the congregation of the Lord. So, the Midianites, they caused the children of Israel to err, to fall away from the law, statutes, and commandment, led them astray. Okay? This is why it says in let me get it real quick. I think it's Exodus chapter Exodus. God, which one was it? Give me a second. Where was it? I think this is it. So I can give me a second. There we go. Call the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Exodus chapter 23. Verse. I'll start at verse 32. It says, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. Okay? That means we're not to make no covenant with the heathen, nor should we worship their idols. Okay? Verse 33, and it says, they shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. Okay? So, in our law, we're not to serve or have any gods before Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? Now going back to Numbers. Okay, let's see, I was on verse 17, yes. Exodus, Numbers 31 and 17. It says, now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and every woman that hath known man by lying with him. So, they killed all the male children and got rid of the women that have been, been with the man. You know, you can even see this. You can even see this type of behavior in the animal kingdom, where a woman, or like for example, a lioness and her cubs. If another male lion comes near her and her babies, that male lion will kill the cubs and will try to ravish the female lion, the lioness. You know, why would they kill the young males? Is because basically, that's not there. They see it as, okay, this child is in the way. I don't want this child here. I need to get rid of it. And it's not his kid. It's not part of his bloodline. So, and a lot of men back then, they didn't want a woman who had been tainted by another man's, DNA, his sperm. So they considered those type of women to be filthy, defiled, or used goods. Okay, verse 18. But all the women children that have not known a man by line with him, keep alive for yourself. So this is, young women or young females that have yet to become women that were virgins, have never known a man, have never had sex with a man. But even to this day, men desire those type of women who are fresh, never been touched, never been tainted. You have to remember, you women represent the earth, the soil. When a man plants his seed or his sperm in you, his DNA stays within your body. It shapes your body. For lack of a better term, it reprograms everything to shape you into how this man wants you to be. Okay? Now when you have women that have multiple DNA samples from different men, it messes them up. They can't peer bond. Their mind and bodies are messed up. Ultimately, their spirit's messed up. So, I read all of this, Numbers chapter 31, verse 1 through 18, to let you know that during war, women are spoiled. Children are spoiled. And, you could read throughout all of history, of what goes on, of what goes on in war. Now we're going to get to, let's see, go to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 21. Deuteronomy chapter 21, starting at verse 10. And it says, When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy power hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. Verse 11. And seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Verse 12. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head, and pare her nails. And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and mother, and a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So, according to the Israelite customs, when we take over, another nation, and if we take their women, and if there's a woman that we find amongst them that is desirable, we take her unto our house, and we let her, like I said, shave her head bald, cut her nails, and we give them a whole month to to mourn for her family, and then after that, we can lie with them and they can bear us children. And that's what's going to happen in the kingdom once, Yahweh Shai and the heavenly host come back along with the elect, and we destroy these other nations and their military power. Okay, we're Once we bring them into captivity, they're you know, their women, their children. Well, you know, the men, women, and children. Yes, they're going to be slaves, but if we find a woman amongst them, you know, this is how it's going to be. This is part of the law. Verse 14, and it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, basically to pimp her out, because thou hast humbled her. Because so if you that woman you brought into thine house, if she's if you find if there's a legit reason that you don't want to have her, if there's something about you that you don't like and you want to get rid of her, you can't pimp her out. You just have to let her go as she is. Okay, now we're gonna go to Deuteronomy, the 22nd chapter, starting at verse 13. Okay, and it says, Deuteronomy 22 and 13. If any man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her, and give occasions of speech against her, and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid. Verse 15, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city in the gate. Verse 16, and the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hateth her. 17, and lo, he hath given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, or a virgin. And yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity, and they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. 18, and the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him, and they shall immerse him, which means to fine him in 100 shekels of silver, and give them unto the father of that damsel, because he hath brought up an evil name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife, and he may not put her away all his days. So you cannot bring up false accusations, or they can fine you for that. Okay. Okay, verse 20, and it says, but if this thing be true, and the tokens of virginity be not found for the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die. So just chuck rocks at her until she dead. Because she hath wrought folly in Israel, to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put evil away from among you. So when a woman plays the role of a harlot, she's bringing shame and disgrace upon her father's name. And that's what a lot of these women in here in America do. They just act like giving the box up from one rod to the next in the cock carousel is something to be proud of. Not knowing that not only are they shaming themselves, but they're also giving their father a bad name. Telling like, look man, hey, this guy's daughter over here, she's easy, she's that's not good. That's not a good look. And a lot of you women, especially Israelite women, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, Seminole Indian, and speckled bird women that know that you're an Israelite through the Spirit, if you're doing this, all you're doing is bringing shame and disgrace upon your father. Think about how your father feels when he finds out that that you've been nothing but a hoe. That's just terrible. That's humiliating. Okay, verse 22. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. So shalt thou put away evil from Israel. So if if a man lies with another man's wife, and she doesn't scream out or resist, she's basically giving consent. So both of them have to die. Verse 23, if a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out unto the gate of the city, and ye shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so thou shalt put away evil from among you. 25. But if a man find a betrothed woman in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. Verse 26. But unto the damsel that shalt do nothing, there is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor, and slayeth him, even so is this matter. Verse 27. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. So if a married woman cries out, that shows that she was trying to resist. And if she resists, then you can't hold her accountable for what happened. She's innocent. Verse 28, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed or married, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Okay? So, if a man finds a woman that has never known a man, and he forces himself on her, and if that be discovered, he has to pay that dowry, and that woman becomes his wife, regardless of how she feels in the situation. Okay. Now here's another thing I wanted to pull up here. All right. Now this right here is comfort women, or comfort girls, were women and girls forced into sexual slavery by the Imperial Japanese Army in occupied countries and territories before and during World War II. The term comfort women is a translation of the Japanese ianfu, which literally means comforting, consoling woman. During World War II, Japanese troops forced hundreds of thousands of women from Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam, China, and other countries into brothels where they were sexually enslaved and repeatedly raped. Many women died or committed suicide due to the brutal mistreatment and sustained physical and emotional distress. After the war, Japan's acknowledgement of the comfort women's plight was minimal, lacking a full apology and appropriate restitution, which damaged Japan's reputation in Asia for decades. Estimates vary as to how many women were involved, with most historians settling somewhere in the range of 50,000 to 200,000. The exact numbers are still being researched and debated. Most of the women were from occupied countries, including Korea, China, and the Philippines. Women who were used for military comfort stations also came from Burma, Thailand, French Indochina, Malaya, Manchukuo, Taiwan, then a Japanese dependency, the Dutch East Indies, Portuguese Timor, Papua New Guinea, including some mixed-race Japanese Papuans, and other Japanese occupied territory. Stations were located in Japan, China, and the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaya, Thailand, Burma, New Guinea, Hong Kong, Macau, and French Indochina. A smaller number of women of European origin were also involved, mostly from the Netherlands and Australia, with an estimate of 200 to 400 Dutch women alone, with an unknown number of other European women. Originally, the brothels were established to provide soldiers with a sexual outlet in order to reduce the incidence of wartime rape, a cause of rising and anti-Japanese sentiment across occupied territories. However, despite the goal of reducing rape and venereal disease, the comfort station aggravated rape, and increase the spread of venereal diseases. Many women were coerced into working to the brothels. According to testimony, some young women were abducted from their homes and countries under Imperial Japanese rule. Japanese women were the first victims to be enslaved in military brothels and trafficked across Japan, Okinawa, Japan's colonies, and occupied territories and overseas battlegrounds. In many cases, local middlemen tasked with procuring women for the military deceived them with promises of work in factories or restaurants. In some cases, propaganda advocated equity and the sponsorship of women in higher education. Other enticements were false advertising for nursing jobs at outposts or Japanese army bases once recruited. They were incarcerated in comfort stations both inside their nation and abroad. A significant percentage of comfort women were minors. Okay, so I mean, you could, like I said, I'm not going to read through all of this, but you know, you have to understand, you women will become a commodity, and a commodity is something that benefits a property or possession. In fact, this is going to be the book of Sirach, and this is in the Apocrypha, and this is coming out of the Bible, the word of the Lord here. All right, and it says, Sirach 36 and 24, and it says, okay, and it says, he that getteth, Sirach 36 and 24, he that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, and a pillar of rest. Okay. And how does a man get a wife? Through the act of sex. So when a man, when a man takes a virgin and he goes in under her, that woman is now his wife. She belongs to him. She is his possession, his property. And I know a lot of you women are going to find offense to this, but this is the truth. And whether you like it or not, whoever you lost your virginity to, whether it be back in high school or college or whatnot, whoever was the first man that took your virginity, that man was your first. That man should have been your. That man was pretty much your husband. But this society that we live in, which gives women the freedom and liberty to gad abroad, they just think it's okay to go from one guy to the next, and this and that. Okay. So let me get this other article here. Okay. Now this is about human trafficking, so understanding it. Okay, it says throughout the world, human traffickers rob children of their innocence, sexually exploit women and men, and subject enslaved migrants to deplorable working conditions through forced labor. They prey upon the weak, ignorant, and desperate, infect communities, and harm societies and economies. Okay? To combat this transnational problem and increase public awareness about human trafficking scopes, we must clearly define what human trafficking is, identify its causes, and address the needs of families who are vulnerable to modern-day slavery. So what is human trafficking? Well, human trafficking is the illegal transport of human beings whose services, such as manual labor in mines, domestic servitude, or commercial sex acts within brothels, are sold for profit. Human trafficking victims engage in these acts through the use of force. They are recruited or sold into involuntary servitude. Okay? According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, every country in the world is affected by human trafficking, with some forms occurring more in certain parts of the globe than others. What are the different types of human trafficking? Sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Of course, sex trafficking includes child sex trafficking and accounts of 79% of human trafficking cases. And when it comes to sexual exploitation, the victims are mostly female. 98% of sex trafficking is women and girls. And children are trafficked for sex 4 times more than adults. Women also have a more prominent role as offenders. in present-day slavery than in most other forms of crime. In addition to being victims of human trafficking, women survivors sometimes become perpetrators of this crime as well. Nearly 20% of human trafficking involves forced labor, which is also called involuntary servitude. The people victimized are subjected to miserable working conditions and strenuous physical activity. They may also be limited in access or unable to access food or water. Debt bondage is a form of human labor trafficking that isn't widely known about, but it is the most used method to initially enslave people. Often people borrow money from traffickers, paying to secure a falsely promised job abroad. Once they've reached their destination, their passports are taken away and they cannot leave until they pay off the debt to the traffickers, which is manipulated to grow rather than shrink. That's a form of usury, okay? And that's against the biblical law. They could be forced to do any task. As a result, debt bondage overlaps with other forms of trafficking. So these are the these are the statistics, and it says that 199,000 human trafficking related crimes occur in the United States each year. Damn. 150 billion are annually generated by forced labor worldwide, and 0.04% of human trafficking cases are reported to the proper authorities. 24.9 million people are trapped in forced labor conditions worldwide at any given time. 34% of human trafficking cases involve children. So, okay, now, why does human trafficking exist? And it says after drug trafficking, human trafficking is the second most profitable illegal industry in the world. It produces 150 billion annually. Money fuels the human trafficking industry. Power is another motivator, just as it's a major contributor to domestic violence. Limited law enforcement also provides an opportunity for human trafficking to flourish. Without strong law enforcement agencies, anti-trafficking task force, or effective criminal justice systems to prosecute offenders and uphold human rights, criminals aren't held accountable for their actions. But human trafficking doesn't start with abduction or forced financial desperation, is often a factor. So, other contributors to human trafficking include political instability, war and civil unrest, cultural norms, officials harboring criminals, corruption. Okay. And these are health effects of human trafficking: STDs, other infectious diseases like tuberculosis, poor eyesight, infertility, cancer, heart disease, diabetes. So there's a lot. This is a lot, and as the scriptures say, you should not make your daughters, you shall not make whoredom. You should, your daughters. Oh my gosh, Salakia. In the biblical law, it says that we are not to make our daughters to be whores. Okay, and we all know that the cartel does that to the so-called Issacharite women and other women as well. Okay, but we're in a land where our daughters are going to be whores anyway. So it's still not an excuse, but there's nothing we can do. We live in the land of corruption and confusion. Okay, let me get 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy. Damn it. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. And it says, "This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of the power, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses, and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. So, you know, rape plays a big part in that, because there's not, in these perilous times to come, it's only going to get worse and worse, and as it gets worse, it's going to lead, eventually it's going to end up being complete lawlessness. This place is going to fall apart, and you're going to have all these savages and all these creeps and all these other sorts of crazy people. They're just going to start doing whatever the hell that they please, and they're not going to care. Okay, I'm going to get Isaiah 13 and 16, because this is what's going to happen. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 16. And it says, in fact, I'll start at verse 15. It says, everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Verse 16, their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Okay? Right now, what's going on in the world is it's just happening on a small scale. This is nothing. It's only going to get worse. A lot of you women, a lot of the people that are living in comfort right now here in Babylon, a lot of people, it's going to get bad. Really bad. And what do you think is going to happen when these foreign troops come rushing up in here? In fact, never mind the foreign troops. What about all these so-called illegal immigrants that we have open borders to now? How many of those people that are crossing the border, how many of those people are dangerous? Basic. This is America, aka Babylon. It has a terrible judgment coming, and a lot of horrible, nightmarish atrocities are going to come. And as for these women that are suffering through all of this is going to be the book of Sirach again. It's going to be chapter 39, verse 28. And it says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction they pour out their force, and appease the wrath of him that made them. Okay? So, for you women out there, and you hear about all this stuff with rape and violence against women and children and so on and so forth. These were spirits created for vengeance, man. This is what you have to look forward to if you don't repent, man. In fact, let me go to this is going to be the chapter 40 in the book of Sirach. Sirach chapter 40, I'm going to start at verse 9. It says, death and bloodshed, strife and sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and the scourge. Verse 10, these things are created for the wicked, and for their sakes came the flood. Okay? So, just like in the days of Noah, man. Death, bloodshed, strife, and the sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and the scourge, man. But this time, this is going to be a lot worse than when it was back then. So, for you women out there who still think you can get away with doing whatever you want, being a boss bitch, thinking that you can do it all by yourself. You don't need a man. You know, and I'm also talking about the men too, that think they're all tough and hard. Just wait until shit starts really happening. And when these savages start rolling these streets, we'll see how tough you are then. We'll see how much of a man you are then. Okay? And be prepared, because you're gonna lose your children. So children are gonna be involved, and a lot of children are gonna be put to death. Alright? So once again, this is entitled Spoils of War. So, you know, and every time that there's a war, you know, you kill off the men who put up a fight, and then next, you know, once you get the threat out of the way, all that's left is the goods. Women, children, and some men too. Men that aren't warriors, that just, I guess you could say, just work in the field or whatever. And, you know, their cattle, all their goods, their resources and everything. So the Red Dawn, if you've seen that movie, Red Dawn will soon become a reality, amongst other things, other films. Okay, so I hope this lesson was edifying to the body and to those that are new coming in, listening and learning with all sincerity. I'd like to give all the honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakat Kodash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostles of the great millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with 100% truth and sincerity, and unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning, and unto the Bayath of Adah, the elect house of David that is scattered abroad. I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. See you in the next lesson, Lord willing. Kwam Yasharala, Wa Abab Abal, Shalom, Barakatham.